Welcome to the Perspective Podcast, where we embrace open dialogue from different perspectives about entrepreneurship, relationships, and education.
And this open dialogue is needed, especially today, as we live in a Twitter finger society where everyone seems to care more about getting their point across than they are about hearing the other person's perspective.
If you're ready to grow your business, your relationships, and your personal development, stick with us here at the Perspective Podcast, because sometimes in life, to get to the next level, you just need a different perspective.
If I look like what I've been through, I'd be roadkill. Tell me off of the pavement, I'm reeking from the...
All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Perspective Podcast. I'm Mouzon. Got T here with me. Say what's up, T.
What's going on, family?
Ladies and gentlemen, back for episode 2 of season 4. But we're going to start this one off in a little bit different of a manner because we have to backtrack a little bit from episode.
It's actually kind of like 1B at this point.
Yeah, exactly. It's not even 2. It's like 1B. We're coming back to record this next part of the episode because if you listen to episode number 1, you realize that we were talking about OnlyFans banning sexually explicit content. Well, you know, the as luck would have it, as fate would have it,
as business would have it.
There we go. As business would have it, 2 days later, after us recording what you heard in episode 1, OnlyFans comes out and has a change of heart, change of mind, change of bank account status. I don't know, change of funding, whatever you want to call it.
Oh yeah, they funded changed, all right.
And 2 days later, they said, "Oh, you know what? I think we made a mistake. We're not going to ban sexually explicit content anymore. Everyone is now welcome." And so T texted me this literally like the day after we recorded episode 1 that you guys heard. And we start laughing and saying, well, there goes that episode. And then it just hit me like, man, this is the epitome of perspective, right? When there's new information that comes into life or into our viewpoint, well, we're going to have a different perspective on it. Mm-hmm. We weren't saying anything was right or wrong. We were just saying, how will this affect people? Who's going to lose money? Who misses out? How does this change things? Yeah. That was what the perspective we had for the amount of information we had at that time. We get new information. Now we have a different perspective. So we said, hey, we got to come back for episode 2 or episode 1B.
1B. Our first 1B episode.
That's right. Our first 1B to say, well, now that we have new information, what's our new perspective on this?
Yes.
Right? So let's fill some people in, T, because again, you might have just heard the first episode. We're going straight into the next one with new information. But what was the new information that popped out? What have you seen? What did you read?
First of all, I said this is gonna happen. I think.
Let's rewind the tape.
I think I said this is gonna happen. Like I can't see how they're gonna make this decision. What I did say was the person who was going to lose was going to be the company, because the workers are going to find other platforms because there was more demand than content creators. So that's already a good side of things. If you're a content creator, they're going to go. There's other platforms that are going to do it. But the company came out in a tweet and essentially said they got assurances, for real, that was the word they used, from banks that adult content would not be penalized. Assurances from the bank. So if you guys remember, the CEO pretty much said, they kept asking him, and he essentially said it's due to the banks, right? Like he said the short answer is banks. So the company just pushed it all onto their banks, all onto their lenders, saying, hey guys, it's not something that we don't want, but our banks, and we got to stay afloat. So thank you for coming, but thank you for coming, right? You ain't got to leave, but you got to get up out of here with that content. The next thing you know, you start having thousands, like we listened to some stuff, right? Thousands of applications started going into all these other platforms of people like trying to apply to get their content now put on these different platforms. All of a sudden, Couple days later, the outrage, article after article talking about they sold out their sex workers. They sold them out. How did they do this? They make their money. They're about to tumble. As people started revolting, going crazy. And here goes the thing that what people did. They didn't just revolt and cry and complain and beg. They made their case and then they left. They took their content money elsewhere. And as soon as that happens, the business, the banks, they're like, uh-oh, hold up. Morals, that gets a little gray when green starts to fade away, okay? There's no way OnlyFans, not no way. It was going to be very difficult for OnlyFans to transition its image from OnlyFans that we know today during the pandemic to whatever else they were going to try to go to. Because here goes the thing, even if they did get something wholesome, something that could generate money, would new content creators want to be a part of that when grandma's going to be like, oh yeah, part of that OnlyFans? I'm not watching that, baby. Like, you know what I mean? It's already a stigma. It's already a thing. It's already out there. So rebranding was going to be almost virtually impossible. And then as a business, your goal is to strike gold and dig as much of that gold out as possible. And you literally saying, yeah, I keep getting oil here. Yeah, I keep getting gold here. Yeah, I keep getting whatever beautiful commodity here. It's a cash cow. It can only grow. I can scale. I can do every single thing. It's like business paradise. And you're like, nah, I don't want to do that no more.
Listen,
that's not business. Like,
it's not, but we talked about it, right? Like,
this is not business.
We talked about it when morals kick in from the money, and that's what we had said, right? Like,
yeah,
when we first look at it before they reversed the ban and they just said, hey, we're going to ban this. Well, we said, all right, well, obviously the money has some morals. Obviously there's some people on the board or people saying, hey, we don't want to support
be associated with it.
Yeah, we don't want to support a porn site. Basically, that's what we're calling, right? We're going to call it. And so that was their stance. And you said something key, right? Like, but when the money starts pouring out of that investment, right? When all of a sudden it's like, oh, we made this call, and now literally overnight, tons of money just leaving the door.
Yep.
Do those morals fly out of the door, right? Do they fly out the window with it? Do they?
We justify, well, I'm not doing it. I'm invested in so many other things that maybe, like, I'm invested in something that may cause high cholesterol. I may be invested in something that may cause cancer. Like, so then you start like rationalizing, well, if I'm going to take this high road, I better take it with everything. Then you're like, well, I can't afford that. So I need to figure out a way to
I'm so curious
process this over here.
I'm so curious what those conversations were like. Like, I'm really, like, I would love to be a fly on the wall in that clubhouse room or whatever, right? Like, to literally hear the CEO and the board or whatever of OnlyFans having a conversation with the money with the banks the day after. 2 days, like literally 24 hours after. I would love to hear what that phone call was like. Is it them, like the CEO and the board being like, we told you, right? If we did this was going to ruin the business. This is all you got to make it right. Or is it the other side? Is it the money coming in being like, hey, I think we jumped the gun on this. Let's slow down, right? Let's backpedal a bit. Let's get the message out. I wonder who's the aggressor on that side, because again, this is perspective. When you have a shift and like, oh man, that decision that I made, that thing that we called out maybe wasn't the right thing, then what's your next recourse? What's your next course of action?
What's the real question here? Will this impact their business short term and or long term? Like, that's the real question. Like, that's my like geeky business question right now, right? Because this is like, some people are thinking like this was a marketing ploy, right? Like a legitimate marketing ploy to try to drum up even more attention to the site. Because from what I understand, the site is pretty like lucrative. Like, obviously it's lucrative. We talked about the money, but like compared to other sites, I guess it's pretty competitive, excuse me, as far as like how much they get, exposure, how they give people freedoms and stuff like that. Now, somebody's probably going to be watching. It's like, no, they don't. There's this other site called, Look It From the Back. And It's so much better. I don't know. I'm just, making stuff up. I don't know. Right. Like, I don't know. But I'm curious to see that the attention, support, do people feel like more empowered now? And so they're like, yeah, I'm going to take my place on this platform because we own this platform. It belongs to the people. Or is this one of those like, man, you left a bad taste in my mouth. And you know what? Let me just go try something else. Right. Because we can like essentially like people can gather again. And again, you can do this when the demand is coming. What OnlyFans figured out was there's no brand loyalty. And it's like no brand loyalty when what I became loyal for leaves. Like, right? Like this is the whole point. Like if you're a business, your goal is to have more demand than you can supply. Right. Like I tell my team this all the time, like like I work with other departments and they're like, we have too many calls coming in. I'm like, what you talking about? We got too many calls coming in. We don't have enough people to have, take care of those calls. I said, that's my problem. I need to recruit more. And we are working on that, but I still want there to be more demand than what I can handle. That means cash is coming in. That means I can literally slow demand down by charging more. Like, you know what I mean? And then I can just have more with less. But if demand keeps going, then I can just keep going up. Because value is there, value keeps surpassing price, right? Like that's the epitome of business. OnlyFans, right? Like OnlyFans had this. They had this. They had it locked and loaded. This was what it was. And then we want to make another decision. We want to throw away our golden goose, let it go. And that's, look, if it was morals, they need to stand behind their thing. Right? Like let's real talk. Let's say maybe the CEO, he found Jesus and he's like, yo, I can't do this no more. Either I'm walking off and I'm going to step away of the CEO and the business can do what it does, or we're going to change this, go in a different direction. You need to stick with that and then let God work it out from there. Right? Like, you know what I mean? You and God work it out from there. There's been better miracles. But if that's not the case, I think my fast take, not my last take. Right? I got that from my CEO. He's like, that's my fast take, not my last take. But my fast take is, I don't think they recover fully. And I think that there's going to be another site or it's going to spread out. And maybe they still are the dominant player, but it may not be the same. But I don't know. Sex sells. So
Listen, I'm right there with you. Normally I try to find the other perspective on this, but like this is gonna kill OnlyFans.
You think it's dead?
I think it's this is how I liken it, right? It may be a slow death. It may not be a quick one. But
I think it's a slow one.
But it's death like within 5 years.
Okay, so we put that on record. The death within 5 years.
Yeah, death within 5 years.
I don't know if I put a date on it, but I just can't see them being the same.
It's because it's like in marriage. What do they tell you never to say? Never say the D word. Why? Because it breaks foundation of your marriage.
Oh yeah.
Automatically, when somebody in your marriage says, "Hey, divorce," right? You throw out the D word.
I'm thinking about this, or I want to do this. Yeah.
Automatically, in the other person's mind, they have to be on defense, like immediately. Like that's what it does. And the more like this is like marriage counseling 101, right? Like when they're like, hey, don't say that word, because what happens is you're like breaking trust in your partner's mind that they might have to, all right, one day he's gonna leave, she's gonna leave. Or if she keeps bringing it up, he keeps bringing it up, you're gonna leave. This was the first break for the content creators on OnlyFans, seeing like, oh, y'all made that decision like that quick. Okay.
Knowing all the same information that you had.
Right, exactly. So even if people keep using it, that is already in the minds of the content creators. And on the other side of branding, that's already in the minds of now the people that you were trying to attract. You just flip-flop. If you wanted to go wholesome, all of a sudden, okay, you want to go wholesome, you want to get more people, then you flip-flop. Now you've just strengthened your brand on the porn, right, sexually explicit content side. So now you're going to lose all those people that you could have possibly won over of like, oh, okay, they're taking it off. Maybe I do go.
Yeah, maybe I do use it.
Maybe I could figure that out. Maybe that could be something for them. But now you've reinforced that side. Like, oh, no, we're going to keep it on there. We want everyone. So now you've alienated the wholesome crowd again. They're not coming back. And you've put a chink in the armor of the content creators to be like, could we take our power somewhere else? Like if they do it now, like could they do it in a year? Could they do it in 2 years?
Yeah. Could they keep, if they could figure out a way to keep their followers, to just transition them somewhere else? Like
maybe, but like
what platform is like doesn't really matter at that point, right?
Maybe, but like that's why I think this was like there's really no recovery from this. There's no recovery, right? Like I think they messed it up for both parties. Like you need the content creators and you need the subscribers, the people to pay. You've messed it up for both sides because now both sides don't know. This is marketing. Like
uncertainty. You created your own uncertainty.
Uncertainty of your brand. Nobody knows now what your brand is. We know it's in the media now. People are talking about, but like, what side do you win? Now do you over-index for the sex workers for the?
You have to.
Do you over-index for them and say no? There's more commissions or more.
You almost have to you almost got to give a discount now.
Yeah. Like
I think you almost have to give a discount. Like maybe you first see if you need to, right? Like you don't give money away for just because. You first need to see if you need to. You figure out a way to give assurances because, like you said, with the divorce, like that's real talk. If somebody in the marriage brings up that they're thinking about it, they thought about it, they take a half a pinky toe step towards it, that erodes a whole lot of years of a whole lot of things. Like that right there is like, hold on. You said what? You say you've been thinking about what? You've been considering what? What did you let come out your mouth? Now the other person, it takes so much more work to get past that, to think it's worth it, but building without considering of that. Like that's there. Like that's all. Like I don't usually like to use words always and everything, but this would be like one of those closest things of always for me in the back of your mind as you're trying to progress forward. And even if things are different and better and greater, the thought is still there because now this person on the other side has shown they could get there. When you have not gotten there, especially if you've never gotten there. Right. It's one thing if you both did. Now that's a whole other thing because now you both are saying it, right? Like that's two totally different things. But if you're like, nope, we're fighting through this, we're going through this, and you're looking at the struggle as a part of the building and a part of like what's going to make it great, and then they turn around and say, nah, that's actually like killing me. Now every time you look at struggle, you're going to be like, is this it? Like, is this going to be too much pressure? Is this going to be it? Like it's like you go out to war and they walked away from the fight and you got beat up and you happen to live and you come back and they're like, oh, yeah, let's go to war again. You're like, I don't know if I want to, do I want to go fight this battle with you?
Exactly.
Because you have a breaking point. And now we're talking about like, not like somebody getting beat on in marriage or constantly cheated on. We're not talking about stuff like that. We're talking about two individuals that's really trying to make it, but for whatever reason, they're just, right? Like it's not working for whatever reason. And maybe there is some infidelity or whatever, right? But it's just like, you get to that point and you're like, can I trust that was just a moment? And you want it to be a moment and it was just a breakdown in process, because we all have that. But that other person, I almost want to say it takes 2 to 3 times more focus from the other person to hear that and to keep going on. Like you cannot go at the same path anymore.
I'm telling you, man, this is like we understand this as married people, right? Like we understand. That's why we can parallel this in business. Because they're both building, like you're building something long term, right? Yeah. You're fully invested in it, right? That's why they go hand in hand. That you can parallel, strong relationships with, business acumen and kind of what you're doing on the business side. And so that's where these two things really go hand in hand. So just like you said, T, right? Like in the marriage, like that thing is always in the back of your mind.
It's in the back of your mind.
That's just the way it goes, right? And anyone that's listening that's married, right? Like, if your partner or you have gotten to that, it's in the back of your mind. It might not come out all the time, but it's there.
Yes.
Same thing in business.
Yes.
We're going to parallel this to OnlyFans. I know it might not make a full sense, but this is exactly how it works.
If you're a worker there, how you make your money could change.
Here's all it takes. You saw it one time, and now, let's say it goes 6 months, 8 months, you're good.
Yes.
And then OnlyFans says, hey, we're going to make this one little change in our regulations, right? Like, we're just going to say, well, instead of showing all that, you have to show this, but it's just a change, but you're still good. And then a year and a half later, it's like, hey, we got to make this other little change. And because you have that thought in the back of your mind of when they first did it, of when they were like, man, you're done. Now, every little change that gets made, it comes back up. That's it. You're like, oh, well, should I? That's why I said it's going to be a slow death for OnlyFans. Like, I don't know that there's a way to come back from this because of how they've positioned themselves in the minds of their creators and the people around. Like, you can't come back when you like just be like, we're stopping, everything's done. And then all of a sudden, 2 days later, literally 2 days. That's what we're talking. We're talking about 2 days.
Yeah, it was a couple. I think it might have been more than 2. I think from when we got into it was like 2. Like, it was our timing on that. Like when we were like, what the heck is going on over here, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
Like when we really started like really deep diving. It was funny at first, right? But now, okay, so let's play the other perspective, right? Because perspective podcast, we like to think about things. Maybe we have to also think about the greed factor from the content creators as well. Right? Like let's think about that, like the divorce situation. So now let's add some layers of complexity to it. Let's say I'm the guy, and but my wife makes like most of the money, and she hits me with, this has really been tough for me. Like, I don't know if this is going to work. And she hits me and she's like, we can have a very cordial divorce. And, we split everything up. And like, but she's like processing. And I'm like, no, baby, I want to stay. Right. Like, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, dang, man, she wanted to leave me. But then it's like, but she make like $4 million a year. Like, yeah, I got this thing in the back of my mind. Pero, Whitwit would say back in college, pero, but do I really want to go down that path? Should I let this thing frustrate me? Because look at the situation that I am in with them. So the other side of that is the way this works is if the content creators' money, what they're bringing in, exceeds that frustration. Now, will that guilt still be there? Yes. Will that frustration, shall I say, still be there? But maybe the money it will keep them in it, right? When if it wasn't that much there, then they'd be like, you know what, let me keep testing some other things out as a just in case, right? Because as a content creator, you're not exclusive to OnlyFans. Right. That's the beautiful thing about it, right? You can go do other things. Now, I would be interested to see if OnlyFans does come to some type of special exclusivity type of platform, but it'd be really hard to kind of track it, if you will. But maybe there's technology out there, right, to kind of lock in some of those content creators and you just give them bigger pieces of the pie, maybe equity and different things of that nature, right? If they go public or something. So there's a lot of fun things to do, but maybe the other side of this is nothing does change. People double down on it because if we talk about the big economy, we joked about how like the restaurants get their servers back, but did restaurants figure a way out to do it without them? And now there's less places to go run back to, especially as the pandemic seems to linger on a little bit. And this maybe isn't a pandemic anymore. It's just the new normal. Maybe they're like, hold up, I can't go back into something else. Maybe these other sites aren't as good. Maybe I'm kind of like, well, I might be mad at OnlyFans. I am making $15,000 a month. I am making rent rent. So I just got to deal with it. Even though I know this person wanted to divorce me, I still am living better with them than I am. I just have to get over that frustration. Just like banks had to get their morals in line, maybe the morals of the content creators, like, I guess you can cheat once, just don't do it again. Okay, just don't do it again.
I guess I'll turn the blind eye on this one.
On this one, like, come on, let's look. If I was let's say if I was married to a billionaire, I'm just being real. I'm just keeping it
Oprah.
Like I'm Dave Chappelle, right? Like off the Oprah thing, right? And me and Oprah, and like I'm married, and there's no what's it called?
Alimony, like child support.
Not alimony. What's the word called? You sign at the beginning of it. The thing I hate so much, prenups, right? And there's no prenup. And Oprah's like, and then everybody's like, Oprah's a fool. And I'm like, yeah, right? Like, I get a wife, I get Oprah, right? And Oprah messes around back with Stedman. The first one I might have to let go. I'm just gonna I'm gonna try to the first one I might let go. I'll be like, y'all was together for like 30 years. I can understand. There's a lot of soul ties built into that Oprah, Auntie O, right? Like there's a lot going on there, right? But we gotta figure this out. We need to go to counseling. We're gonna go see Dr. Phil for a little bit. We're gonna go see a couple other people. And I'm not walking like some people are not going to walk away from.
Listen, this is Kevin Samuels, man. You're
$500 million, whatever she's worth, $1 billion or $2 billion. So I'm not walking away from $500 million. I mean, I'm being facetious here because I love really hard. So money's not a big thing for me. But even somebody like me, I'm telling you, literally, like that would be consciously hard for them making a mistake and just being like, forget it. Now somebody's going to say, well, yeah, you walk away, you get your half. But let's just say for whatever reason, that could be that easy, right? But still, like, come on. This is why I'm just like, maybe they don't. If they don't die, it's only because the content creators stuck with them hard, and the demand and the frustration of the customers, they're going to follow the content creators. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if the content creator stays good and they're business savvy, but if the content creators get pissed, it's over.
Yeah, you might have something on that side if the money outweighs the dissatisfaction, or
just like it did on the other side. It sounds like the money outweighed the moral, or the standard that they want to get back to.
But I mean, it's hard for me to think that long term. Let's go back to the analogy of the marriage, right? And the divorce, and add on more layers to this, because I see that side keep going the other way. You're married to Oprah, right?
I pick somebody safe. I'm not married to Oprah, right? I couldn't say nobody like I do. Like, yeah, Alicia from work. Yeah. You couldn't say something crazy, like some random name.
Plus, we got to show the extreme. We got to show the extreme level too. And why I said that about Kevin Samuels, because that's what Kevin Samuels talks about all the time when it comes to high value men, and like, women that stick by that want the high value man, right? The 1%, right? Making good money, all that stuff. Well, what are you willing to kind of give up? Because otherwise, right, if you don't kind of say, hey, I might turn the blind eye to that, or that's okay, or that's acceptable, then it's very easy that like you're not going to be around, right? So like that's a real conversation for people that marry billionaires and people like that, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, if we use the same analogy and said, okay, you're married to Oprah, and all of a sudden, right, she's giving you some ideas that maybe it's not going to work out. Yeah. You don't really know. Yeah, you might turn a blind eye to the cheating, the back with Stedman and all that. That's cool. But I guarantee you, as a person, you're going to start putting a little bit aside.
Listen, I'm a Shaq's. What's Shaq's wife? I forgot her name. That's what she did. She started tucking stuff, millions away.
For real, because that's your safe. Like that's what happens is you start thinking of, again, that's what breaks down the chink in that armor when you throw out those words, when you throw out divorce, when you throw out, we're canceling, it's done. Like human beings are here. We protect ourselves. Yeah. Right. We protect ourselves. So as soon as we know that there's some uncertainty and potentially danger, right? Because people, and this goes back to how I talk about money, right? A lot of times money is so deep rooted in us that like we look at it like life or death if we don't have it, right? It's a very like integral part of like who we are. Yeah. You know what I mean? I remember giving I gave a webinar about relationships and money. And one of the things I said is the reason why like husband and wife and people in relationships like really go back and forth about money is because it's actually essential to like our living. So even though we're just having a conversation about money, it feels like we're attacking each other at like a human level.
Our identity.
Our identity, our survival, right? Like that's why money conversations get so heated in families. And so like being able to break that down. But anyway, right? If you know your money source potentially could go away, you're going to do the things necessary to make sure that doesn't happen, even if it's over time. Even if you know, all right, I'm making 15 grand a month right now, I'll stick around. I don't really trust you, so I'm gonna start saving this extra. I'm gonna start putting some content.
You might be more inclined
one.
to save. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm gonna start having different conversations with people just in case this doesn't work out, right? Because before I thought this was gonna be it. Now you've given me doubt to think, oh, this might not work out. Well, I have to do other things. I'm not just gonna sit and just let it come in and not have another plan, even though most people do that, right? Like most people.
It's another way I just, as you said it, that was a very good analogy. Another way to equate it, because let's say somebody's like, I don't understand marriage and I don't understand this. I give another example. Layoffs at work. If you thought I'm going to have a job and this is what I'm going to do, government jobs, we talked about that like a couple years ago. Like, I'm going to have this government job. It's going to be forever. It's so secure, blah, 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 blah. And then next thing you know, unthinkable happens. People start getting laid off. People start getting, for whatever reason, maybe it was money, maybe it was a shift in the economy, maybe it's a shift in we don't have this business unit anymore. We're still profitable. We're a great company, but we don't want this. Even if it's a profitable business unit, like that used to happen all the time in GE back in the day, right? They would get rid of a business unit, even if it was profitable, if it wasn't like top 3 in the industry. Like if they couldn't be top 3, they didn't want it, right? Like, you know what I mean? 4th and 5th place didn't work for them. So even with profits, right? And what if you were a part of that and you start seeing people around you get laid off, but you don't? You know what? You know what's going to happen? You're going to say, this isn't as secure as I thought it was going to be. Right. I need to find more secure land, green pastures out there somewhere else. The grass might be green on the other side, or I need to prepare myself, which a lot of people did with my own side hustle or different business or somewhere else that I can pivot to if they make an adjustment. Yeah. That's another way to look at this, right?
I think you're right, because you're seeing it already happen in our society.
Yeah. Like most people, why did you go to OnlyFans? Because your job laid you off.
That's right.
Right? Or maybe the job didn't lay you off, but you didn't want to be in there potentially catching COVID with customers walking through or other coworkers, right? Being reckless, right? So you were like, hey, I could go into the comfort of my bedroom where I'm already laying, put some glittery stuff up in the back or whatever, and sometimes not even, and just hit the record button and do what I enjoy doing anyway. Right. And make couple $1,000s a month, pay my rent, pay for groceries or whatever else. Yeah. So now that is not stable. No, now do you create your own app and then like literally just bring your own crowd in, and then now you control it all on your own? Do you trust other platforms? If nothing else, OnlyFans just opened up the mind of the people that used it, like walked away from their job to do this, now saying, how can I do this more effectively?
That's it. And I think that's, again, back to my thesis of like, this is why it's going to be a slow death for OnlyFans, because now it's in culture. It's in like the zeitgeist, right? That like you have options. You have options. You don't got to stay wherever you are. If that's a job, if that's the business, if that's the platform, if that's Instagram and they shut you down, if you go to Facebook and they shut you down, like you have options. I think that message is now resonating with people, where before last year, it really wasn't resonating, right? You were at that job and you really believed like, oh, I don't. Now, all of a sudden, when you're forced, this is why I'm such a, let's go to entrepreneurship, right? I'm such a believer in entrepreneurship, is because last year, people were forced to have new options. You were like
forced to work from home or forced to figure something else out.
You're forced, right? It's the old analogy on the entrepreneur side. You got to jump off the cliff and build a plane on the way down. Most people, though, need the push because they stand at the edge of the cliff and they're like, I'm not jumping. I'm not going, right? And last year, almost everybody got pushed. Yeah. And what we're seeing is now people seeing it like, oh, I could do that. Or maybe I could do this. Or if that doesn't work out, and now it's in the, so I think if a platform like OnlyFans is like, oh, well, we might shut you down. I think it's already in people's minds like, oh, well, I already transitioned once. I could go over here. I could do this. And
I can get ahead of it now. I don't need to be pushed. I can jump now.
Jump, because now I felt what it was like one time. I hit the rock one time and realized it wasn't that bad, right? Because that's the analogy. Is like, you know, in entrepreneurship, you just got to get punched, right? If you haven't been in a fight, you don't know what it's like to get punched. But once you get punched, you're like, okay, I could take that, right? Like,
Oh, that was what he had? Like, that was the best he or she had? Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm about to, I'm coming at you now.
That's it, right? And so that's now in people's mind. And I don't think that we thought that way 3 years ago as a society. I don't think that was the general thought. So whether it's, the job, whether it's OnlyFans, whatever it is, like I think people are seeing I got options and I don't have to just deal with whatever's coming my way. I'm gonna make a plan. I'm gonna figure this thing out. If I have to jump here or jump there or take a little off the top or do an extra thing on this side, I'm gonna do what I need to do because that's what last year showed us.
Last year, that's a fantastic point. I hope people are listening. Like, guys, you allowed to listen to this. Like, nothing is forever that we know of, right? Like, except for death and taxes, right? And then even if you're a Bible believing person, some people may not die, right? With the rapture. We talked about that too, right? Right. And so, like, I guess the like final thought, like with myself is, it comes back to, what do you want? Like we talk, like this is like one-on-one with perspective. What is it that you exactly want? What's the best vehicle to get you there? And then I guess we can add a wrinkle to it, always going back and reevaluating, is that still the best vehicle, right? Because maybe what you want changes, right? Maybe you want to live in New York and you need to get there from California. Well, you can take a car, you can take a plane, you can take blah, blah, blah. You can't take a boat, like that I know of, unless you go like a long way around, but I guess that would be one way. But then if you say, I want to go from New York to Africa, you probably, now you can't use the car. You can't, like, some things just become like unavailable to you, right? And so you have to keep going back and reevaluating this. The sex workers on OnlyFans, this is a shock to their nervous system. This is a wake-up call. You are dependent on this platform. It's the same thing that just happened to a lot of different apps with Apple. You can't track no more like you were tracking before. The results are going down on Facebook. People have been talking about, like, a lot, like they're not getting the same thing. I have a friend of mine now who had to walk away from his business. Well, not walk away. He had to go back and get a job because his marketing and stuff wasn't working enough on Facebook anymore and on Pinterest anymore and different things. He didn't have the revenue. So he was like, shift back to going and selling and doing what I need to do, build up my cash flow and learn how to have a new vehicle. These things are ever changing and ever evolving. Same thing with businesses. You're going to have pressure come in that can try to shut you down. As a business, how could you have shifted? What could you have done? I'm pretty sure OnlyFans probably didn't, the CEO and the board didn't think that this was probably going to happen. They were going to get to that point where somebody was willing to say, you need to walk away from billions of dollars. But it happened. What are you going to do about it now? Right? Like, what are you going to do about it now? In marriage, your partner may come to you and be like, yeah, I know you think everything's okay, but I'm like, I got the paperwork in the car and I need you to talk me into why I shouldn't sign it. Whoa, right? And now you're going to have to sort through that and work through that and figure out, is that something you still want to be involved in? I hope you do, because like I can tell you, like I've been there, not with paperwork or something like that, but like that word came out. You know what I mean? And it was, I was like, oh, the way my insecurity is set up. Full transparency on this podcast, right? The way my insecurity and stuff is set up. Counselor. But you're like, hey, I'm being honest though. Like, let's keep it a buck.
Yeah.
You have to figure out, those are hard, tough, gut-wrenching moments. Yeah. Now what? What?
That becomes the question, right? And
now what?
It's what we've always, for everyone listening, it's what we've always tried to get you prepared for, right? It's kind of like a common theme that we've talked about throughout the show is just, are you prepared? Are you taking ownership, and are you prepared for what's up ahead, for the changes, for the ups and downs, for the lefts and rights, right? For the emotional ups and downs, all those types of things that are coming. This just happened to be another example. That's all. This just happened to be another example where a platform, right, has good success or things going and is supporting people and people are making money and all those types of things. And then something unforeseen happens where there's a change. Yeah. People, this is life. This is life, right? Like this is, we can point to all the different sectors. We can talk about our marriages, because do you know how much it changes in a relationship? How much individuals change, how much circumstances change, how much visions change. Like it's changing, right? Talk about your buddy in business, right? Like do you know how much marketing changes on a daily basis? To think that like you can do the same marketing and it not change in a year, 2 years, 4 years, and you be completely so like, we just have to understand that that's life. Change is constant. Change is constant. Change is inevitable. It's like, it's just what happens, right? And you have to be comfortable being in that uncomfortable space. You have to be comfortable knowing that like, okay, things are going to change. Am I prepared? And a lot of this stuff, T, honestly, comes down to your own belief in you. Like, you get to a certain stage in life and in your confidence where you really say like, all right, I've been through a bunch of stuff. Like, next thing, I can handle it. All right, I can handle that. Right? Like, you just start to feel that way. Like I said, it's kind of like being in a fight, right? Like, after you're in enough fights, you realize like, yeah, if I get punched, I know it hurts, but I can handle it. It's fine, right? It's not gonna be that bad.
This is why, like, if you're talking about marriage, you're not serious about that, and you're using it for effect, figure out another way to use. Figure out a different way. Don't keep telling the person that you want to leave. Like, because what happens is they will, and I feel the need to say this, they will start to start envisioning life without you. Absolutely. And that's the last thing you want if you didn't really mean that. They'll start like that initial pain will be less and less and less and less, to the point of where they're like, I've already lived without you for the last 5 years in my mind. Even though I've been present with you, I'm okay for this. Let's just make this happen. And if that's not what you really wanted, you better stop saying it.
That's right. It's huge. That's a huge point. I feel like we got to end on that, because for people that are married and that are listening, like that's a big deal. It's a big deal. We can parallel this into business and all the stuff we talk about, but specifically in our relationships, in our marriages, relationships with significant others, like the whole nine. You got to know that foundation is incredibly important, right? And that foundation is broken by saying things that, even if you mean it at the time, there's some things that you can't repair, right? There's some things that like you can't take it back, right? Because it causes a thought in that other person's mind. Even if you apologize, and even if you say, hey, I didn't mean it, or we were just arguing, or whatever the case is, that other person now has a thought. They're like, maybe, just maybe, I have to protect myself. Because I don't want to put myself in a position, keep going and keep building, and then all of a sudden the rug gets pulled out from under me, right? Like I said, as human beings, we go to protect ourselves. So it's why we have to be very cautious on that side, to say like, if you care about your relationship, there's certain rules and barriers. Like me and my wife, like, we're 10 years married, probably like year 4-ish, year 4 or 5-ish was when we had a really big blow up. Both were saying divorce, right? We were both at that place. And it was from that big blow up 6 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that, that we drew that line in the sand that said, we're never going to say this again. And from this point moving forward, right? Like, there's no more breaking that. There's no more, like, unless you really, really mean that, right? We're not going to bring that up, because it's going to cause bad foundation for our marriage, right? If you go to a place in your mind, because this is what happens in marriage, ladies and gentlemen, this is like a marriage counseling session.
I know we turned this into marriage, like, exactly, but this is real talk though.
But it's real. What happens is when one person gets that thought then plants, right? It harvests. You start seeing content around those thoughts. Your friends, the people around you, the influences start picking at that thought. And then, just like you said, all of a sudden you start going different ways in your mind, because you're not having that conversation, all from an argument or one thing that was said that left a seed that was able to grow. And that's what we try to say, hey, listen, we can't let those seeds grow in our marriage. We have to make sure that the foundation is solid. If we have to get back to building more of the foundation because of things that were said in the past, then let's do that. Because eventually we got to we can't build on a cracked foundation.
Yeah, and that's why, and that's why I said, like, the way my insecurity, or in the better word would have been like trauma. Like, a lot of people will have their own personal traumas from childhood and different things, and there's some things you don't want to pick at.
Right.
Period. And it is the responsibility of the individual to work through and sort through their trauma. Yes, and you shouldn't pick at it while they're processing, right? Like there's the two things can be true, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, it's their responsibility, and yes, you shouldn't pick at it while they're still getting their stuff together.
And that's the crappy part about marriage, is because you have to be vulnerable to your spouse
Yep.
in order for the marriage to work, which literally means you give them the bullets to the gun every time. Right? Like it's the only way it works. Like, you have to do this, because if you're not vulnerable, then you don't know each other, then you can't build on a relationship anyway.
Yeah, you don't have a real one. Yeah.
Right. So you have to be vulnerable enough to give them the bullets of your insecurities, of your traumas, of all those things, and just hope and pray that they don't use it.
And hope is not a strategy.
Exactly, right? But that's it, right? Like you just got to believe that out of their love and out of that they're not going to use that on you in the worst times. And unfortunately, that happens a lot in marriage.
Oh yeah, 100%. I know how you were thinking. I was like, how you know what I was thinking? Because this is the type of person you are. You're like, oh, I knew you was gonna see. I should have told you nothing. But we digress, because we'll sit here for another 13 hours doing a marriage series, because but it is like you can correlate marriage to business. You can correlate it to the employee work relationship. You can correlate it to entrepreneur with their customer, right? Like the relationship that's there, is it transaction or their value? Do you love and appreciate each other? Or are you just there for a quickie, right? Like there's so many things you can translate this to. But like my current CEO, he says things, and one of the things that really closed me on like transitioning, talking about bad relationships not working and switching, right? He said, look, man, like at the end of the day, this business is simply about people helping people. And that really resonated with me, because he simplified it. And so that's why these correlations can happen. That's why you can get good in business and see improvement in your marriage. This is why this thing with OnlyFans and its content creators, they need to have some kind of panel. They need to have some kind of like discourse. They need to not like try to act like business as usual. They need to come together and have some mediation, right? And like kind of talk through some things of why and what, and answer questions. Because if they leave all these unanswered questions, like what, why, how, when, where, people are like, they're going to like, I agree. It's going to be a death of 1,000 cuts. It's going to be a slow, grinding, halt death if they don't come back and with full transparency and candor and have these conversations. And then, which attracts the other people that maybe thought about having an OnlyFans account, maybe thought about doing something. They were like on the fence, or maybe they didn't put a lot of content out and they're already there. If they can see a platform supports them and cares for them and understands, and if this was just a bad moment that you can build upon, you have a different thing. And that's the same thing with relationships. So that's kind of my thoughts on it, man.
That's it, man. Let's really wrap it up there, because if we keep
we wrap it. It's done.
Yeah,
we end it.
We will talk about this for a long time. There's a lot of things I could even say about that point. But either way, for those of you that are listening, again, we want to hear your perspective. We gave you 1 and 1B.
1 and 1B.
1 and 1B, right? And so we're here. Thank you for listening, because again, that means that you're open and your mind is open, and your brain is fertile, your mind is fertile to take in new perspectives and hear new perspectives. So kudos to you for listening. But again, continue to reach out to T and I. We definitely want to engage with you. We want to hear more of your perspective. Are there other things that you want to hear on the show? Other topics you want us to talk about? We're going to start talking about bringing on more guests, and maybe we start bringing some of our audience on, or some of the people that are listening and have some perspective,
have some thoughts. Yeah,
right. Have some of them come on and share their perspective. But at the end of the day, we're doing this for you, so that you can understand that, hey, it's not about right or wrong. It's just about a perspective. And the more that you're thinking through things, the more you're going to be able to get to whatever that next stage is in that area of your life, whether it be your relationship, whether it be business, whether it be your health, your finances, whatever that thing is. All right. So until next week, guys, we're going to sign off.
Oh, I got a bang bang. All right, there we go. I was like, I don't know. Did he throw the oop? I don't know. I didn't jump yet.
Either way, you can go up and get it. I thought you were gonna do the politician, the
No, man. This is a good one. Yeah. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate it. Subscribe. Hit the like button, share, all that fun stuff. We're really bad at this, because we're not we really just care about the conversation,
100%.
right? Like, but it's probably important, like subscribe, share. Don't just sit back and listen to this and be like, oh, there goes my guy, it's a perspective, and not tell anybody about it. Let people know, right? Don't be selfish.
Absolutely. Especially if you think it's a good conversation, right? Just share it with a friend or a family member, somebody that would want to join in the conversation. You never know, it'll bless their life too. So
Yep.
Until next week, guys, we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Perspective Podcast. We hope this conversation made you think a bit deeper, gain some insight, or even possibly even gain a brand new perspective. If you did enjoy it, do us a favor, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, Anchor, or anywhere else you stream. Leave a review to help more people experience these conversations and potentially change their perspective as well. And lastly, as always, T and I want you to connect with us. So follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. You can find us just by using our names. And there we get a chance to hear your perspective. Until next time, God bless.